All right, so the ways that we display our emotions in our communication, I'm going to put them in a short list of 3 descending levels of importance. So the main channels of emotional expression. First is going to be the face. Second is going to be the voice, plus the rest of the body. And then in third place, we're going to put words. Okay. So I talked about the face in the nonverbal communication. That the face is ground zero for the most detail that we can put on the resolution of our emotional expressions. So the number of facial expressions that we're capable of recognizing is about 10,000 unique facial expressions, 3,000 of which are emotional in nature. Okay, so we're capable of recognizing about 3,000 different emotional faces and distinguishing them between another. So there are 3,000 combinations of emotional combinations that we're capable of recognizing in other people. Now, there is definitely a lot of stuff that we can find out in the voice and the body, but because it's nowhere near this, we're not going to get as much detail here, okay? So less detail than the face. But still, because this is nonverbal, it's still going to be superior to words. Now I'm going to pause before I get to the words portion, because I want to talk a little bit more about this just to illustrate like how significant this 3,000 business is. So there are basic emotions and there are complex emotions. Basic emotions combine to make complex emotions. Okay, I'm going to give you a, actually I'm going to erase this number 3 here because I'm going to write something. Paul Ekman's basic emotions. Now there are 7 of them in this class. You can look on the internet and there are different sources pointing to a different number, but I consider these 7 to be easy to remember because they're associated with a mnemonic. So it's going to use the sad fish mnemonic. Do you know what a mnemonic is? So it could be an anagram, it could be something else. It's just some kind of device that helps you remember something. So in this case, it's going to be an acronym. So this sad fish, each letter in this phrase, sad fish, like this, I mean, sad fish is not exactly a word, but for the sake of talking about basic emotions, we're going to pretend that it is. And every single letter in this acronym, actually, I'm going to have to go to another page to list these. Sad fish. Each letter is a basic emotion. Now, to sort of illustrate the principle of emotional contagion and our mirror neurons, and to illustrate just how easy it is for folks to be able to name emotions that they recognize in someone's face, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop share for a moment so you can see my face. And I'm going to start making faces, okay? And I want you to name those emotions that I'm making, okay? And as soon as we get them right, which will be real fast, we won't take long to get through this thing. It'll happen real quick. Then we'll start populating the sad fish thing. Let me go back to the screen share. Okay, that's sadness. All right, so we got anger. Yep, disgust, good. Fear, good. Interest. There you go. There's happiness. See, that didn't take long at all. Yeah, sometimes we get these a little bit conflated sometimes. And I think it happens because I'm either like, I'm looking a certain direction. Yeah, I would say a lot of times the interest and happiness thing gets pushed together sometimes. Paul Ekman, his argument is that, well, if we were just like a culturally universal level, then we might want to keep this at 6 emotions, but there are a lot of cultures that reach these 7. Now, my point is not to say like what is or is not a culturally universal basic emotion. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to show you that there is kind of a connection between basic emotions and complex emotions. So a complex emotion that I'm going to use as an example here is horror. Okay. Horror is an important emotion in the philosophy of film and film studies, as it's a genre for film. So Noel Carroll, I'll write the name here. Philosopher, I don't even know if he's still alive anymore. He made the argument that horror is actually a
combination of disgust and fear. So if you combine those two emotions, you get horror.
So remember when we were looking at that 3,000 number of different facial expressions? You got to think of how many different combinations there are between these things that can reach 3,000 different combinations. Is that possible just by combining ingredients? Well, combining unique emotions with each other is one way. And also what you got to do is consider different intensities of emotion. Because an emotion could be called something different when it simply becomes more intense. So like if somebody is showing that somebody is displaying rage, like rage is really intense anger. And you get a little bit ahead of that when you recognize the look on their face. Now, are you going to feel rage? Is that the right word? What might you feel instead? Irritation. You might call it anger, not so much rage. So if you can consider that there are different intensities of emotions and different, qualitatively different emotions that can be combined together, then I think that it's reasonable to understand how we can get to 3,000 different facial expressions. Does that make sense? It's sort of like cooking, you know, like you're using a recipe and you've got these ingredients over here on the left, and you can play around with certain quantities that you're going to put into them. And depending on which ingredients you're choosing and how much of these ingredients you're using on your face, then you can come up with a lot of different facial recipes. Okay, so what are we supposed to use this for when we're communicating? Like, we're talking about a rhetorical proof. This is a way of proving ourselves to our audience. So we can have an effect on our audience in a way that is different than credibility and different than using arguments. So has anybody ever thought about, like, what does it matter what emotions we're feeling to what we're supposed to be doing in listening to someone's speech? So depending on what kind of feeling you have, it's going to make you have a different kind of disposition to what's being discussed. Well, let me kind of come up with an example. So when you've been feeling really sad, are you motivated to do things? What do you want to do when you're really, really sad? Cry and you want to listen to music, right? At least that's what I do. I'm like, I'm going to cry and I'm going to listen to some music to try and maybe make myself feel a little bit better. Like the other day when I was like, I'm feeling really sad and I know that I need to cry and I just can't like get over that threshold, then I'll be like, okay, so I'm going to play some Sarah McLachlan so that I can really let this out, right? So you can play a song to trigger your crying. So you can just have the episode and then get through it, right? Yeah, that's what I did the other day. So do you want, if you're trying to motivate people to do things, do you want them to feel sad? Probably not. So it's important to be really
cognizant of what kind of emotions that we're conveying for our audience. So if we're thinking, get people to be less rash,
then showing sadness might be the order of the day. If you're trying to get your audience to take risks, any idea what kind of emotion you want people to have? I have never encountered a context quite like driving, where people have taken so much risk. And when people are in a certain state of mind, they make these really dangerous maneuvers on the highway. They make these gestures that spread this feeling to other people. And when these gestures are successful in getting other people to feel this feeling too, these other people end up taking higher risks spontaneously and doing really dangerous things. What am I talking about?
road rage. Yeah. So what's the operative emotion here? It's anger.
Objectively, like I've read studies on this, that people who are experiencing anger are proven to have higher risk-taking behavior than people who are not angry. Okay, so if you're trying to encourage people to like take a chance on something, then you actually want to encourage a feeling of anger. So if you want people to feel a little bit of anger, how are we supposed to do this? Are we supposed to just tell them, all right, now it's time to feel angry? Are you feeling angry now? It's time to feel angry, folks. Come on, let's be angry. What's wrong with me? I'm displaying happiness. I'm not displaying anger. But if I wanted to be like, you know, we need to try this out, showing an emotion of anger on your face is going to infect people a little bit with that feeling of anger. And as soon as they have the ability to recognize that I'm pissed off, they're going to objectively be more likely to take the risks that are being suggested to them. If you're trying to get people to be considering your argument, if you want people to kind of be more interested in what you're talking about, then is anger the right emotion to show? You might want to show an emotion that displays more intrigue on your face so that you can infect your audience with the emotion of intrigue to get them interested in what you're trying to say. Yeah, so here, this is really the core of how to understand pathos, okay? The objective with pathos as a rhetorical proof is to not just talk about emotions, but to cause your audience to have specific emotions, okay? Now, the way that we do this, and I'm going to go back to another page and then continue the list that I had started before. So we've got the face, and we've also got the voice and the body. Now, the voice and the body, not quite as good as the face, but still more effective than words. So using your voice to show your emotion in your paralanguage. Paralanguage is everything that has to do with how fast you're talking, how long in between the words you're putting a little bit of dead space, the accents you have, how carefully enunciated the words are, the volume, pitch, and qualitatively you can embed your emotions in your voice. All of those things are a part of your paralanguage. Now, your body language as well is also going to be relevant here. So gestures are metaphorical. So looking at the way that you're using your hands and what you're actually doing with your hands and your arms can reveal a whole lot about what kind of relationship you have with the ideas that you're discussing. So if you are like, making slashing kind of gestures with your arms, and you're criticizing an argument, then, people at an emotional level are going to get this impression that you're doing violence to ideas. This stuff is done metaphorically. Definitely something that could be done. Not quite as effective as the face, but still something that you can do. And what's more is you can do this simultaneously with manipulating your facial expressions. Or not so much manipulating, but really like letting yourself, have that free double direction connection between the feeling of your emotion and you showing your emotions on your face. So really training your face to be super expressive of what feelings you have. And this is something that can be developed as a habit of like showing the emotions that you're feeling. The most effective way to do this in the third category, using words, is not through naming emotions. It's through reproducing the experience found in number 1 and number 2 above, meaning the face, voice, and body. Okay. Now, what do I mean by reproducing the experience? It's in such a way by using words to cause people to imagine what they would see, hear, or otherwise observe in someone expressing emotion. So not just saying that somebody felt angry, but to talk about the Vulcan eyebrows and the downshot middle of someone's forehead and the frown that's pasted on their forehead and the tight muscles that are ready for a fight. Now, I deliberately tried to make that mention have as little facial expression and as little vocal expression as possible. Using words to describe the nonverbals that people would observe. So what kind of facial configuration, somebody who is angry, what somebody's voice would sound like when they're angry, what they would be doing with their body if they're angry. So they might be crossing their arms across their chest. And so just describing that using words is going to call that up in people's imaginations when people are listening to the story. And when they recognize in their imaginations, oh, you're describing what somebody looks and sounds like and moves around when they're angry. Oh, that person's angry. So that's how we should use each. We need to be using all of these 3 channels at the same time: the face, the voice, the body, and using words. But this is a far cry different from just saying that somebody felt angry. Anger is probably the least effective way to make somebody feel angry, because we've encountered that word so much that we've learned not to call the image up in our minds, right? It's just something that for a lot of people is an abstract thing. Hopefully. Now, if it's not, I just sincerely apologize for making you upset. At a certain level, we do understand this. We do understand that this mechanism of observing and recognizing and feeling is largely an automatic thing. So we've come up with means of kind of tamping it down and keeping it under control, right? And it's kind of like working around it and understanding that, well, if we want to have any control over our emotions, then basically what we have to do is we have to keep this apparatus from activating when we don't want it to activate. So what we have to do is, if we don't want to feel something, what we have to do is we have to prevent ourselves from recognizing an emotion. That's how we can exercise choice over how we're feeling. So if we can't do it over the transition between recognizing and feeling, if that happens automatically, then what we have to do is we have to stop ourselves from recognizing it in the first place. So if somebody is showing us emotions through their face and their voice and the words that they're using, what should we do to stop that contagion? You can start doing something else to make it so that you're not paying attention to it. So what you could do is you can engage something else. Like you can take out your phone and you can look at it. And you can start, reading your email and start processing that, and that's where your attention is. It's definitely an effective way. So they block themselves from viewing it. A lot of people look away when they see somebody get hurt, or if they don't want to feel an emotion that somebody is showing on their face. Somebody can avert their eyes as a way of putting a stop to the pathway of emotional contagion. So that is probably the most common way that people do that, is by causing some kind of breakage in the pathway that causes emotional contagion to happen. So it could be that good speakers are the ones who are paying attention to how accessible their audience is from moment to moment concerning what emotions they're willing to absorb. And if they're making themselves less available, then good speakers are going to make alterations to how they are trying to affect their audience. So if they think that they're overstepping boundaries, then drawing back on that is important.